Welcome to Braindrop by VCOM Solutions. Each episode, we talk to IT leaders and experts, explore recent projects, and learn from their triumphs and challenges. We hope today's episode provides you with a unique window into the world of IT, where creativity meets problem solving and technology drives businesses forward. I'm your host, Jethro Castillo. Now let's drop into today's conversation. Today on Braindrop by VCOM Solutions, I am joined by Robert Sheesley, the CIO of Wrench Group, an organization that specializes in home repair, replacement, and maintenance services, including heating, ventilation, air conditioning, plumbing, water, and electrical services. Robert has decades of experience in leadership, information technology strategy and capability delivery, and business operations optimization. He has driven high-performance teams to accomplish great results for organizations of all sizes. Robert, thanks for being on the podcast.
My pleasure. I'm happy to be here.
So before we started, we had kind of a 10-minute conversation on sports, and you mentioned that, as you grew older, you kind of compartmentalized that, and being a sports maven, if you will, is kind of just a compartment in your life. Now that you're, older, we're going to jump into IT for sure, but what are the things that you do in your free time? What kind of fills you up other than IT?
Yeah, well, we recently moved to the Sarasota, Florida area, Sarasota, Florida, Indian Beach. And my wife and I have two German Shepherds. One is 10 months old and one is 3 years old. They keep us very busy. We walk them routinely several times a day. We take them on hikes with us. Prior to August, I enjoyed golf quite a bit. I have a shoulder injury that I'm working on. Had some regenerative medicine, platelet-rich plasma injections as a non-surgical treatment. And that was January 2nd. So I'm in the physical therapy stage, hoping to golf hopefully sometime in June or May. And we do a lot of international travel, my wife and I. Nice. When we do, obviously, we have to board our dogs, which we found a wonderful place here in the Sarasota area that cares a lot for specifically the German Shepherd breed, which is a unique breed in and of itself. And so we do a lot of international travel. We were in South Africa in March, Bordeaux, France in August. We just like to experience other cultures, other areas of the world. To learn, as well as just enjoy some of the natural beauty of other places, other countries in the world. South Africa was the first time we had been, and is, in my opinion, the most beautiful country we've ever been to. And hope to return someday. Botswana is on our list, and a few other places. We'll be going to Iceland in August.
Oh, awesome! When you say international, you're like all over the map, really. This is
we're I wouldn't say we're near retirement. I love working. You have to balance it with other aspects of your life. I think to have a healthy marriage, a healthy life, a healthy working relationship with your colleagues. So we do like to travel. We're going to Antigua in 2 weeks. That's kind of like a feet in the sand vacation.
Yeah. Well, let's jump in because we talked about what you're doing now, but of course, long journey to get to where you are. How exactly did you get started in IT?
So it was somewhat accidental, I suppose. I just completed my undergraduate school in a series of interviews with advertising agencies. I went to school for broadcast journalism, and then halfway through my sophomore or junior year, I decided advertising is the place I wanted to be. So I had a number of interviews with agencies in New York, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia. I was offered a job with Gray Advertising in New York City for the whopping entry-level salary of $17,000 a year. And I had to take inventory of what I thought I would want to be earning as a college graduate, and spend some time thinking about really what I wanted to do with my career. Advertising was an area I was very interested in, being a writer and taking the journalism route. It was a natural, I think, move to advertising. However, $17,000 a year. I didn't know anyone in New York. I had student loans to pay back. So I decided to do the next obvious thing and go get an MBA. And during that time, I joined the Marine Corps Reserve to supplement a modest graduate assistant income. And I had learned of a guy named Ross Perot, who was a businessman. And as a more serious student pursuing a graduate degree, I started to really dive into the business world and learn about leaders in the world. And Perot was an interesting leader, started electronic data systems after leaving IBM with $1,000 in his pocket. You could arguably say he created the outsourcing industry. And then it was in 1980 something, 79, 80. There's a book written, Ken Follett wrote the book On Wings of Eagles. Perot orchestrated the rescue of two of his employees from an Iranian prison. And quite a story. As a U.S. Marine, I was enamored with Mr. Perot. And after graduate school, I only applied to one company. Was offered the position in the systems engineer development program with EDS. I had only, I think I had only completed one COBOL coding class, and I did some statistical analysis with SAS and SPSS back in graduate school, but I was not a technology geek, propeller head type of person. And I say that affectionately for those who are. But the program at EDS was top notch, great education. And it wasn't necessarily the technology that inspired me to sign on with EDS, but the leadership of Ross Perot. I spent 7 years with EDS, one of which I was deployed at Operation Desert Storm, and continued to receive my EDS salary during that year I was on deployment because EDS valued servicemen and servicewomen who were on active duty during that time. And that just confirmed my opinion of the patriotic fabric of the company founded by Ross Perot. And that's how my IT career got started. I learned to code in other languages, some not so sexy languages like JCL and although I understand COBOL still is alive and well in many organizations that are still running mainframes. So I think the experience I had at EDS was tremendous, not just from a technology learning perspective, but from a leadership perspective.
Well, do you consider yourself a technology geek propellerhead now?
I would say that at one point in my career, I certainly was. I mean, once I learned how to apply my natural talents and ability to learn to coding and developing software, I would say certainly during the time I was at EDS, I was probably a technology geek. I'm a geek now, but a different perspective. I'm not hands-on. I haven't coded in 20 years, probably 25 actually, and that's a good thing. Could I still do a code review? I probably could, simply because of my experiences. But I have wonderful IT leaders that handle those sorts of things at Wrench Group. I'm really now, the last 10, 15 years of my career, looking more from the business side in to technology, making sure that whatever we're developing, whatever we're buying, whatever we're partnering with, whoever we're partnering with, that there's business value to be derived from the efforts and the initiatives related to technology.
Yeah, obviously not to minimize your role, but you almost act as that liaison between the tech people and the business, and you make sure that they're aligned so that the tech team is fulfilling the needs of the business.
Indeed. I had a client years ago, Tom Riley. He has since passed, unfortunately. And we had a lot of walks along Grant Park in Chicago together, just to kind of get out of the building and kind of have one-on-one conversations as we walked in Grant Park. And he always used to emphasize this: the best way to be successful in technology is to be a tweener. Be that intermediary between the technologist and the business community. And I agreed with him then, and I agree with him now.
You obviously are someone who likes to learn and likes to study. especially, pursuing what you did at the beginning of your career. What do you do now to kind of continue to learn, whether it's IT, tech, or just business or life in general?
Yeah, I mean, independent study and research. I attend conferences throughout the year. I speak at conferences throughout the year. I consider myself a player coach and a lifelong learner. I'm a student teacher, if you will. I keep in contact with a lot of colleagues from my past, and through those relationships, oftentimes they invite me to certain conferences or summits that occur throughout the world. I mentioned I'm going to London in May to meet with all the folks over at Hot Topics to have a day or two of studio podcast interviews, and that's a great learning experience. That's a great program that they have at Hot Topics, and they're bringing it to the U.S. October in Nashville, October 24th.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, they've been doing it in London now for about 3 or 4 years, and I've been back and forth a few times. I've done also virtual interviews with Hot Topics. More recently, I from a prior colleague, a client of mine, past client, I've taken an advisory board role with Bump Search, which is really a next generation search engine using blockchain and Web 2 technology to offer consumers, users, enhanced search experience. And so that keeps me hopping and needing to be abreast of the new technology, especially in the area of blockchain, which I think has a tremendous application, not just with Bump Search, but in other areas, especially healthcare.
I asked this question to a lot of our guests, and I'm always like, please give me some book recommendations or some resources like newsletters. And they do, but far and beyond, the number one answer, like you just said, is networking, other people, being able to listen to other people, ask questions. And I've learned throughout my young life too, I do like to read and listen to podcasts and consume media, but I really, really get to learn a lot when I get to talk to someone directly and hear their expertise, because there are things that you can't explain in general terms. There are things that can only be understood through experience.
Absolutely. And last week I had the best of both worlds in Atlanta. I was attending our LGP, one of our private equity partners, hosts a summit every year, a leadership summit. And back in August, when I was at the Inspire CIO National CIO of the Year Awards in Boston, I was in the audience of a presenter, Peter Hine, who recently wrote the book, Getting to Nimble. And he's the author of several books. I think he's a Forbes columnist as well. And so I met Peter in August, but he presented at the LGP summit last week in Atlanta. And I had just read his book, because when I encountered his presentation in Boston, I picked up the book because he said enough in that presentation to motivate me to learn more about what he was talking about with respect to getting to nimble, getting back to the transformational journey that many companies want to embark on and experience. And fortunately, at the meeting, at the summit last week, he recognized me. He remembered meeting me in Boston, and he invited me to a dinner the last night of the summit, which was a very intimate setting with 14 other CIOs. And, the conversation was rich, content, significant. You've got, the years of experience in that room, exceeded hundreds of years. And so I was able to reflect on what I had read in his book and the conversation. So I had the best of both worlds last week.
Yeah, I think it's one thing to consume that knowledge, but then it's another thing to then be able to take what you learned and then apply it or talk about it with other people. It only builds on that for sure. Yes. So with that being said, what are you most excited about when it comes to IT and the future of tech?
The phrase that is bouncing around or has bounced around the last couple of years is data is the new oil. I don't know if you've heard that. It seems to be a prevalent comment in many conferences, presentations, panel discussions. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. The ability to analyze data and apply artificial intelligence, Gen AI, to deriving decisions or automating capabilities within an organization, I think is exciting. You take it a step further. I was at a breakfast a few years back, and the former CEO of Splunk was speaking. His name escapes me at the present time. And he's no longer with Splunk, but he was describing how Splunk was using some fairly sophisticated data analytics to be able to forecast forest fires in the Northwest based on atmospheric data collection, and through application of artificial intelligence, algorithms, patterns of past data analysis. They're able to forecast through sensors and atmospheric data collection the probability of a forest fire happening, and the value of that, just from a human perspective and a nature perspective, is tremendous. So those are the types of things I'm very excited about.
With everything that does excite, there is always, room for caution. And this is always the name of the game with AI too. And any technology that comes out, it's always, there are the people who embrace it fully and want to go all in. And then there are those who are fully afraid of it and think that, to be apocalyptic, the downfall of mankind. And that is, I feel like that narrative has happened with Gen AI, but even things before that. And so I don't believe in extremes. I always believe in that middle and that nuance, right? Like there's good and bad, and we always have to grapple with that. It's just how we deal with things. So with all the things that do excite you, what are the things that worry you or concern you? Not in a apocalyptic sense, like I said, but just something to watch out for.
Yeah, I think, I was leading enterprise architecture at Mylan Pharmaceuticals back in 2013, 2012, somewhere a decade or so ago. And I realized that in my repertoire of experiences, I did not have a whole lot of foundation in cybersecurity. So I sought, opportunity to learn more about cybersecurity. And I found an online certification course at Carnegie Mellon University. And I dove into that. Who was the professor? Del Myros, a former Air Force general, was the professor for Carnegie Mellon for this online course. And that was like drinking through the fire hose of cybersecurity reality. And the certification was cybersecurity leadership. And, the text was wonderful, back to learning. The text was great, but the weekly engagement and presentation of information and experiences by Dell was amazing learning opportunity. Why I'm sharing that with you is I kind of plugged the hole in what I saw as a gap in my skills and experiences and knowledge. And when it comes to what concerns me about the application and use of more sophisticated technology like AI, the bad guys are busy. They're as busy as we are, and you have to stay out in front. I would say that Wrench, we're a fast follower when it comes to these things. Application of new technology. But in the cybersecurity space, we're very serious about how we approach that. I think we've done a great job of onboarding tools to secure our data and our people and our corporate assets. But we consistently review that on a quarterly basis. We have a risk register. Great opportunity. Another, we talk about learning. I attended Cyborg. It's the cybersecurity annual conference in Pittsburgh that Carnegie Mellon was hosting. I think they still have a role in that. But a gentleman presented, Chris Roberts. Chris. He was famous for moving the plane using a computer. And so he hacked into the operating system of a jet and moved it. And
Wow.
had been, if you Google Chris Roberts, I think, if you bump Chris Roberts, we're not Googling anymore. You'll learn of his story. But, I asked him, after his presentation at Cyberg, how much should we spend on cybersecurity as an organization, given the size of X, Y, and Z? At the time I was at Mylan, and his answer was very interesting and I think highly applicable. And it's really the tolerance of risk. It's what is the tolerance of risk of your board and your C-suite? And that will give you some range of what you should expect to spend on cybersecurity. And I think there's a lot of truth to that.
That's very interesting. I like that. You obviously brought up your company, and we're going to jump into that and dive into what your team is doing. But I just wanted to say, and especially as someone who does these interviews and these conversations, I really try to refine my communication and want to improve listening and how to connect with people better. And something I've noticed you've done that I really commend and I think is really important is when you talk about somebody else, you use their name. You give them the credit where it's due. You did it with your professor. You did it with the person that you walked with, and you kind of shared information with each other. The person who wrote that book you read and then did a talk. And I just like that. I firmly believe you just kind of make it a mission to like know and remember the name of the people around you, because I don't remember where I read it, but it's like the most beautiful sound to somebody's ears is their own name. I don't remember where I said that. And I think it's truth though. Like when someone says my name, they're acknowledging me directly, or if they're talking about me to somebody else. And so I just wanted to say, I think that's a really awesome thing that you do is you name drop, not for your sake, because I don't think you need that for your sake, but to really acknowledge these people personally. And I just think that's really awesome.
Thank you. I tell people often in some of the podcasts that I do, I have the Walter Mitty. If you're familiar with the Secret of Walter Mitty,
yeah.
I read that book in like sophomore, junior year of college. I had a lit class, and I was astonished at that book and the authors with all of the experiences that Walter Mitty had. And I feel like I've lived the IT career of Walter Mitty. I've met some amazing people, have had some amazing mentors in my career. Michael Smith, who's now at Estee Lauder, who was previously at Mylan, was my boss at Mylan. And I had an opportunity to catch up with him in August in Boston because he was at the Inspire CIO award ceremony as well. And just talking with him for about an hour during one of the receptions brought back a lot of the learnings that I had taken away from my experience at Mylan that he was, the foundation of.
It makes me really, I'm definitely going to go out from this conversation. I've learned a lot, but one thing for sure is I'm really going to emphasize really appreciating the people around me and the role models and people like you. Obviously, I'm so grateful to be able to do this. And so I know this is an aside, but just thank you again for kind of, it's not something that you were even trying to teach or educate. It just was something I picked up naturally. And so I just think it's really cool. Okay. So now back to your company and Wrench. I kind of introduced you and the company a little bit, but why don't you say it from your own point of view? Tell me about your IT team and environment, how long you've been there, how many team members you have, and what that organization really does and what you guys do for the organization.
Sure. Yeah, it's been a great 6 years. I left Mylan in 2016, started doing some consulting work, went back into the private equity M&A world, helping some of the PE companies that I had relationships in the past with some due diligence, and landed with a former colleague of mine, Damien Drapp, who I worked with at Alvarez & Marsal, probably one of the easily top 10 technology brains I've encountered in my experiences. I hired Damien at Alvarez & Marsal, and then he hired me in 2016 to assist with a merger of two honey companies, one in Ann Arbor and one in Minneapolis. While I was doing that, Damien asked me to come to Atlanta and help Wrench Group with a software selection, which I've done dozens, maybe 100 times in my past life. So I spent 2 or 3 weeks helping him with that software selection, went back to Minneapolis to continue to complete the merger of the two honey companies. And a few months later, he called me and said, hey, I have some other things on my plate. Can you come down and help them with the integration of these acquisitions onto the common platform that we had helped them choose, months prior? And those months were rough. I was easily putting in full-time at the honey companies and the full-time at Wrench Group.
Wow.
So yeah, it was probably 80-hour work weeks for a couple of months. But that led me to this role I'm in now, which is Chief Information Officer of Wrench Group. I'll be celebrating 6 years in March. We are a private equity owned organization. Leonard Green Partners is our majority private equity company. We added TSG Consumer and Oak Hill Capital last fall. Great partners. When I started, we had 4 brands. We have 26 now, knock on wood. I think we'll get to 27 here in a few weeks if everything goes well.
Wow.
And we've spent the last 6 years moving the acquired companies in home services, and I'll explain a little bit about that, onto common platforms, common HR platform, common operating system, common F&A system. And then more recently, we chose to launch Adobe Cloud for our marketing technology. And we're in year 3 of that. So moving them onto the Adobe Cloud platform as well for our marketing campaigns, website hosting, website management, et cetera. So home services, what is that? It's really, we play in the residential space. So most, if not all of our customers are homeowners or owners of multi-family unit buildings. But we steer clear of commercial. There are other organizations that do that very well, but we are focused on residential, HVAC, plumbing, electrical. We're trying a new product and service offering in the Arizona market on solar. We just recently dipped our toe into the generator install pool in Texas. So we are expanding our portfolio of services in the home services area. We've got about a little over 2 million customers, 26 brands, 8,000 employees. My team is relatively lean. We have about 40 IT resources in corporate. At the brands or the locations, we typically have 1 or more IT resources, boots on the ground, we refer to them. They report through the brand leadership, but they are dotted line to the IT organization. So overall, we probably have about 70, 75 IT resources. And then we have great IT third-party partners, Verizon, iVision in the Atlanta market, Archon, our managed services provider, and our SOC, our Security Operations Center. And so we've got some really great partners. Service Titan is our primary operating platform. They've been a great partner for us. So, we have a very balanced IT organization of employees, consultants, and then third-party IT partners.
Well, let's dive in deep then, because I think, we mentioned this earlier, but we learn the best from specific experience and what other people have to say. So I definitely like this part of the podcast where we talk about something that you've worked on recently. Why did you take it on, and what were the goals for that project for the organization?
Indeed. There's a lot I could draw from, and we'd probably have to add a couple hours to our time today. But very recently, we had an acquisition of an organization that has a CIO and has a very strong IT staff. And they've done a wonderful job of building capabilities and functions around their on-premise operating system. I think they recognized that during our conversations with them prior to the acquisition, that they were going to move off of that system at some point because it wasn't scaling the way they needed it to scale. Their growth has been tremendous. They're in the Charlotte market. We made a collective decision that we would move them onto our standard operating platform. In order to do that, we needed to work with one of our SaaS vendors to make upgrades or enhancements to their product, which isn't an easy thing to do because, they've got hundreds, if not thousands of other customers. And maintaining a common, homogeneous, functional view of a product is important to organizations that are growing in that software space. But they leaned in and agreed to make some changes and told us that the other changes that we were asking for to accommodate this one acquired company's more sophisticated, mature functional capabilities. They said, probably not going to happen this year, may not happen next year. We'll look at talking about our product roadmap at some point in doing that. So we set out to build a software, complementary software within the Microsoft Azure Logic Apps space in collaboration with our IMA team, Information Management Analytics, who are building a data lake to fire off data analytics for marketing capabilities and other value-added capabilities within our operations. So it's a fairly complex endeavor, and we're about to land the plane. And our goal is that we landed successfully, no broken wings, certainly no injuries. To use an analogy, coming up here in a couple of months, it's been a 2-year endeavor.
Wow.
And it's going to be not only impactful to our acquisition in the Charlotte market so that they can continue to grow and utilize the new functionality that actually has been enhanced from what they provided and what they built with their on-premise system. But we're going to be able to extrapolate that across all of our brands and offer to our brands the new functionality. So it's kind of it's an exponential value delivery, which I'm so proud of this team. I tell this team in particular, we've had our share of disagreements and we've had our share of perhaps dramatic moments along the way. But we're going to have a wonderful cork popping celebration here in a couple of months as we go live with this. It's a bolt-on, that's the term people are using. I don't like that term. It's an enhanced capability within our own environment to supplement our SaaS product.
Yeah, I always find that really fascinating about acquisitions is that, it's you want to acquire so you can grow, but that comes with growing pains because they have technology or tech stacks that are different from yours. And you have to figure out either how to compromise or how to enhance. But ultimately, that acquisition, like you said, it's like that 2 birds with 1 stone. You did it for them, but it's not just for them now. That will help the rest of your organization and all the other brands. So I think it's a kind of a interesting sort of thing to do, if you will.
A comment was made at that dinner I referred to last week with Peter High and at least a dozen other CIOs. Someone made the comment that CEOs want to achieve transformation as long as it doesn't require change. And it was kind of, we're all, CIO geeks in the room. So we're casting maybe some dispersions on the CEO community. But to some degree that's true. A lot of business leaders want transformation. They use the term quite a lot. But as long as it doesn't require us to change, it'll be good. In that particular example of that acquired company, our goal was, our goal always when we acquire an organization and we integrate it into the homogeneous platforms that we have, do no harm. Is, we also need to apply think globally, act locally. It's a real, it's not just a moniker. It's not just a words. We actually really try to apply that to all of our acquisitions. We do not want to upset the apple cart. We don't want to mess with their secret sauce. They've been successful on their own. The reason they joined Wrench is because they saw an opportunity to be part of a larger organization that provides shared services in IT, HR, finance and accounting, marketing, so that they can focus on their core capabilities. And that's really servicing the homeowner. We want customers for life. And that is a focus of all of our brands that we bring into the Wrench family is customers for life.
And I like that. Think globally, act locally. You want to continue to help and impact as many people as possible, while still impacting the people that you are still impacting. You want to expand reach and then also dive deep. And I think that's really, I like that mindset and that customers for life. I think that really is a good driving factor. I also really laughed at the, we want transformation, but we don't want change, because you're saying that it's the same word. Like, we want this, but we don't want it. And I like that. And, you know, that cliche analogy of when a caterpillar transforms into a butterfly, that change is almost painful, right? They wrap themselves into that cocoon and then break themselves out, and then they're new. But because of that difficult change and trusting that it would take them to where it was going to be, they're willing to do that because they became a beautiful butterfly. And so I just wanted to tie back into that. I think that's really
a great
cool.
analogy.
I think that, you know, this is launching in 2 months, so I can't ask you, you know, what are the outcomes now with the launch, because it's still going live. But while, you know, that you get to cork pop and celebrate, knowing what you know now with that 2-year endeavor, what are some things that you want to celebrate for your team that went well? And what are some things that you would do differently now?
You know, I think in the area of celebration, the focus that the team had along the way was tremendous. Their consistent application of the art of the possible and the willingness of our acquired company to adopt some process changes along the way. You know, it's you know, I don't want to say it, you know, the theme was meet me in the middle, but it sort of was meet me in the middle. We're gonna try to navigate this space by delivering functionality in this supplemental container of software, right? Which is predominantly API driven from the operating system and other systems like the Adobe platform that we are onboarding. I neglected to mention a new partner, InfoBip, that has been tremendous. And, you know, that's a great example too. I joined Georgia CIO. I'm on the advisory board now back in, you know, when I came to Atlanta. From that, I meet Mike Russell, who is the founder and owner of ETS Solutions. He invites me to his fall summit. I go to the fall summit. I hear a presentation by InfoBip. I meet Glenn Stansberry. We talk about the things that we want to do with Wrench as a supplement to our Adobe platform relative to customer communications. InfoBip, you know, is a leader in that space. And now we're a client of InfoBip, and functionality and capabilities that we're going to be able to build on from that platform is tremendous for us in terms of growth, in terms of introducing new capabilities to the organization. Back to the celebratory question, I think our ability to work through difficult conversations certainly is a success. It wasn't always pretty, you know, people have their own points of view. When you get a lot of smart technologists in the room, the one thing that you can be certain of is disagreement. And it's how that disagreement is processed and how it is, how you navigate that to a common path together, I think is very, very important. And, you know, sometimes that requires a facilitator. Sometimes that requires, you know, someone like me or one of my other leaders, to look at things, you know, across the landscape, and really drive the conversation to pros and cons. And then it's all about risk, right? You know, how much risk are you willing to bear? Back to the risk register.
Yeah.
You know, every technology, every solution will have at least one pro and one con. And to the degree that you can evaluate it from that point of view, and then agree that we have to pick a common path to move forward, else we'll continue to spin and stay on the treadmill, and we won't be able to get to mile number 3 or 5 or 7. I think is really, really important. Things I would change are the same things I would change, you know, in past large scale efforts. I while with a consulting firm back in 2007, 6, 8, I was helping 2 dental health plans merge, one in Boston, one in Milwaukee. I was leading the program, and I had change management resources. I had IT resources. I had process engineering resources on my team. And it was time to talk to the CEO about onboarding these change management resources, organizational change management, helping the organization consume the change in a way that is positive. And I met with the CEO and I referenced a Harvard Business Review study a year prior. They interviewed 100 CEOs who had just gone through a large-scale system change in their organizations. And they asked those 100 CEOs, what one thing would you change if you could do it all over again? 89%, 89 out of 100 CEOs said, I would make more of an investment in organizational change management, helping the organization get ready for in the area of preparedness and then adopting the changes that were about to happen. And her name escapes me. I wish I could remember it off the top of my head, but she was a brilliant CEO. She got it immediately. I mean, I was using that reference as a point to say, hey, your peers are saying this. And she's like, I'm already there. I agree. We need to do this the right way. And so I think with respect to the current initiative that's been a 2-year endeavor, maybe more organizational change management, maybe more watering and feeding of the acquired company's ability to be prepared and adopt what was about to come down the road. We could have avoided perhaps some of the stalls and the obstacles that we encountered.
Yeah. I mean, to go back to that, the CEOs say, we want transformation, but we don't want change. It does make sense in the sense that change is hard. It's annoying. It's frustrating. You have to adjust to get used to the thing that's happening, especially when the thing before has worked so well. And so I to want the transformation that everybody wants, you have to invest, like you said, into that change management so that the change isn't as abrupt or as scary or as unsure, so that the transformation can't happen. And so rather than going, oh, everyone just needs to be more flexible with change, I think the better solution is to invest in that sort of management of change, figure out the way to communicate and when and how and to who, so that everybody it doesn't feel like it's an abrupt jump, but they feel like they were able to move at their own pace to get to that transformation.
Absolutely. So, the state of preparedness for large scale change like that is so important. I was so fortunate early in my career. I had just gotten back from Desert Storm. I was at EDS. I was blessed to be invited to join the EDS leadership internship, a 12-month program. You picked the topic. They had a program already laid out, but there was a topic a month. One month it was this topic, 1 month it was this topic. And they brought in guest speakers, pretty high caliber guest speakers. Stephen Covey was one of the speakers. I walked into an auditorium as a participant in that program, and the topic of the month was the psychology of change. And I walked into the auditorium, and I think I had just completed reading the book The Fifth Discipline, or I was in the process of reading that book by Peter Senge. And I look up on stage, and Peter Senge is on stage. He's teaching our course, and what an amazing experience that was. But a lot of the things that were stated, and this was in 1992, so quite a long time ago. Many of the things that were stated, I still have the program participant guide for the psychology of change, and I continue to refer to it because there is a psychology about change that organizations, specifically IT organizations that are about to help organizations adopt particular system or new process, there's techniques that you can use to help prepare them for that.
I definitely now want to do a lot of research into that. That topic has always been fascinating to me, for sure. To close, what is one of the greatest things and you've said a lot of good nuggets, but what is one last great thing you've learned in your career that you'd like to share with the audience?
It's not about the technology, it's about the people.
I love that.
That has been a recurring theme. When I joined EDS and I went through that program, I got good grades in college and I barely tried. Shamefully, I didn't learn that you had to attend class, to get all A's. I guess I played baseball in college for the first 2 years. So I went to college to play baseball and they told me I had to go to class in order to play baseball. So I went to class. as minimally as possible. But I think, when I went through that program at EDS, I thought I knew stuff. And what I learned is it's not what you know, it's how you apply what you know. And the only way to apply what you know is to work with people to apply it. And so I think that is the one nugget of knowledge, call it wisdom, maybe, I don't know, that I have amassed over the course of my career, that it's really not about the technology, it's about the people.
Well, thank you so much for your time. This was an absolutely incredible conversation. I'm very lucky to have this with you. I wish you all the best in your endeavors. Again, thank you for your time and your expertise, and I can't wait to share this with everybody else.
Thank you.
And take care.
Appreciate it. Have a good week.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. VCOM Solutions is here to help make your IT projects and day-to-day operations as easy and efficient as possible. If you'd like to see how VCOM can help your organization save time and money, request a demo at vcomsolutions.com/demo. Do you work in IT? Be a guest on Braindrop. Go to vcomsolutions.com/Braindrop guest to sign up. Thanks again for dropping in. Don't forget to subscribe, and you can find us on social media at VCOM Solutions. Until next time.